death, and aliens, an in-depth look at horror and sci-fi TV from two friends who vaguely know what they're doing. I'm Courtney.
And I'm MK.
And how are you?
I am completely ensconced by the
What a word
drama,
choice.
the drama that is the death of Duo the Owl.
That is the exact word to use for that as well. That tracks.
I this week has been a terrible week. I didn't really do a lot. I worked a lot. But I don't know who is in charge of Duolingo's social media accounts, but we all know that Duolingo has done nothing but professionally bully people and threaten their lives for years
In the name of education.
in the name of education. And then sometime this week, the Duolingo owl died. Or at least
R.I.P.
they announced its death. Which then turned into the continuation of the unhinged efforts of Duolingo's social media to just completely be insane, including a Duolingo post supporting Kendrick Lamar, which that one just threw me for a loop. But then also every other corporate TikTok account is now in on it.
I can't wait to see those. I haven't seen any of the corporate. I've seen like regular Duo, but I haven't seen the corporate ones. So
No, like,
I'm
well,
ready.
I mean, no, but I mean, some like I sent you the Buffalo Wild Wings one. I sent you
Hmm.
the Class Dojo one. Like,
Hmm. I
it's
didn't know what that meant. So
oh, Class Dojo is like a thing where for classrooms for like kids get to create monsters and you give them like point systems on the classes. Like it's an educational thing. Like you give
oh,
monsters, the kids get points, and then you can give them like good points and bad points. So like if they're misbehaving, and then it makes a sound that goes through the whole classroom so the kids can hear it, and then they redeem points for things. We use them. I'm actually a certified Class Dojo mentor. I'm in the Class Dojo mentor
ooh,
program. I was selected and I'm a certified mentor for Class Dojo.
amazing. This is not sponsored.
It is not sponsored. No, they didn't also pay me to be a mentor. They just gave me a certificate. So
That sounds great though.
I fucked up my light and it's like too blue and I don't
You
know how to
did.
fix it. I
I
can make
don't
it
know what
like
you did.
really yellow. Okay, I don't know. Well, I can make it really yellow. That's not what I want at all. What? I genuinely don't know what. Okay,
Oh,
there we go. I think I did the right one now.
I think it's the one that's behind you that's counteracting it.
Right. And I don't know. But that one's been on the whole time. I don't know what happened.
But the light
Um,
went down outside.
mm,
I
but
think that's where your lighting
also
is
I
messed
just
up.
was touching buttons that I shouldn't touch because ADHD.
Sure,
Um,
sure.
but yeah, so it's wild. It is unhinged, and I feel like I'm being gaslit.
You are hardcore. But I did want to start my segment by saying that I was in I was going to start it, and then you did it. I was going to say I'm in peril because of the death of one of our loved ones, um, duo.
Yeah.
But you you beat me to the
I
punch.
beat you to the punch because I literally don't have a life other than Duolingo right now.
No,
Although
I have felt more motivated this week.
I was doing my Duolingo lesson today and realized that like my pronunciation for Chinese was actually like really
Um,
good.
yeah, Mary is crushing it.
Yeah.
You completed 5 friends quests in a row. Time to celebrate.
Yeah,
That
I
is what
sure
Duo
did.
told me today.
Actually, I got a notification that somebody liked the fact that I finished my 5 friend quests in a row, but it was my one of my former students. Because I always told my kids they could only be friends with me on Duolingo. It's the only place you're allowed to be friends with me because it's not a real social media app, but
Right.
they got to feel special like they were friends with me.
Uh-huh.
And one of the girls liked my thing. And it's a girl who's at my school now. And I was like, why does she have her phone out? And they go, oh, it's passing time. She's allowed to have her phone right now. And like, thank God when she's wandering the halls between classes and she takes her phone out, it's to go on Duolingo. Like,
Truly, truly.
truly. Um,
Yeah.
But yeah, I have a planning period while there's another class in my classroom, and instead of like going somewhere else, I just like sit there and like help participate in their class sometimes. Um, and but they were watching The Blind Side, and I was just speaking Chinese to my phone. I was like, this is probably ridiculous.
It probably was. It probably
Um,
was.
but yeah, no, my only life right now is that because
Duo.
I need something to focus on that is not
Sure.
the crushing
Weight of
fact,
existence.
yeah, the fact that
Mhm.
the education system is collapsing and the economy
Sure.
is collapsing and my brain is
Mentally, we're
collapsing.
collapsing. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Heard.
like, how about you?
Well, I also am using distraction tools for the mental demise of my mental state.
Yeah.
Um, but I am not on the Duo Talk yet. But I'm
Based on how many
on,
videos I sent you, you will be
I
now.
will be. I have hardcore jumped into the book talk a year later. And so I've been reading and going through a lot of books and stuff. So we're about to read The Briar Club for one of my book clubs, the one I actually go to usually,
Yeah.
which I haven't started yet, but it's supposed to be really good. And then we're also reading Bright Young Woman or
Okay.
Bright Young Woman. I don't know. My other one. However, the book that I'm listening to at this moment is Butcher and Blackbird. And a lot of people talked about this book when it came out, and I was like, sounds dumb. So I didn't, because I'm on all the like NetGalley and ebook,
Yeah.
what's the one? The early reading sites. I saw it before it came out. I was like, I don't know. This sounds real dumb. I don't think I'm gonna like it. And then it came out. Everyone was like, oh my God, it's amazing. And I was like, you have just fallen into the book talk trap of
Yeah.
it got popular. I don't know. I'm halfway through it. I thought like I started 2 days ago.
Um,
I cannot
I
stop.
I have not read it yet, but Brittany's stepmom, at Brittany's wedding would not stop talking about like her sister and I were talking about the Akatar books, and her mom just kept going, "You have to read Butcher and Blackbird. Forget Akatar. You have to read Butcher and Blackbird."
It is off the wall. I am in love. I'm obsessed. I love Rowan. He is my new husband. Which I don't say lightly usually when it comes to books because I read a lot of books. But that's my audio book, and I highly recommend it. It probably the fast read because it's a fast son of audio book. And the way
Yeah.
it's written is not like the way it's written is like an easy style to read. Like I can
Okay.
tell from listening. So I think you'd read it pretty fast if you checked it out. But it's again, I'm halfway through. So as of now, it's blowing my mind. Um, One of the books I did get early that I got early like a year ago, that I haven't read till now. Um, I've tried being nice. It's by Anne Leary,
Okay.
and it's Dennis Leary's wife, and she is off the walls, unhinged, and I love her. It's essays about times she like tried to be nice in her life, and then basically had to do a 180 because everyone's insane. And so it's just like essays. So I just kind of read an essay here and there.
Yeah.
Um, Really good, really good. And you'll be pleased to know that I pulled out Avatar. And I've restarted reading it. I'm not very far in, but I like
Okay.
read the first chapter. I was like, I remember everything about this book.
Okay.
So I am coming back to it. Also a quick read. I do think Butcher and Blackbird's probably a faster read, but it is also a
Probably.
quick read.
Yeah.
Um, So I am ready to dive back into this world and remember actually what happened instead of
My
just like vaguely remembering how it went.
my books, I'm currently reading Empire of Storms,
Mm-hmm,
um, and Tower of Dawn. It is
mm-hmm.
books six and seven of the uh Throne of Glass
Total
series.
class.
Um, Tower of Dawn is so bad. No, it's not bad. It's not bad. It's not bad at all. It's not that. It's the chapters are like 40 pages each, and they're about, and it's because it's a tandem read. It's like all the characters that I like are in this one, and the characters that I'm less excited about. It was like me trying to read the fourth Game of Thrones books, the Thrones book all over
I'm gonna have
again.
to read those in tandem, the Game of Thrones books, so I can have one I like and one I don't.
Yeah, because the fourth Game of Thrones book was, and that's why I was like, I was so sure because of how hard reading Game of Thrones 4 was for me, that I had to do this as a tandem read, because if I finished Empire of Storms and then had to start reading Tower of Dawn, I was not going to survive it.
Yeah.
Um, Empire of Storm, they're and it's also not chapter to chapter. It's like you read 3 here, 2 there, like
Yeah.
so in Empire of Storm, I am on chapter, where did my bookmark go? Oh, chapter 11, which is up to page 119. So like the first 10 chapters. In Tower of Dawn, I'm only on I finished chapter 4, but I'm on page 52. Like the chapters are just so much longer. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, that's one thing I like about these books, because I listened to the audiobook of Court of Thorns and Roses the first time. Um, but they were, I mean, they felt like short chapters.
yeah.
Yeah, they all look like pretty short
No,
chapters too.
yeah. SJM books tend to have pretty decent chapter lengths, and then all of a sudden, as you get about halfway through the book, you'll find a chapter that is 47 pages long, and then 3 chapters that are 6 page or 2 pages each.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, this book has been through a lot because I bought it. There was a bookstore that we went to that I was like, I really want to support this bookstore. And so I'm gonna rebuy this book that I've already read. It may have been Magic City Books in Tulsa.
Mm,
But there was one that I was like, I really want to support this specific bookstore. And then my life went off the
yeah,
rails. And so this book like is rough around the edges. And I
yeah.
haven't even like hardly started it yet because it made it through the moves. I've just found it in the back of Rachel's closet where I left it. Like this poor book has been through it. So it'll be pleased when I actually read it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm just kind of like I beat Clue Master on my phone. It's an app. That's a thing I didn't know you could do. I'm yeah, I'm just coping mechanisms with all of these different things.
Yeah.
And Clue Master is the one that did I tell you about this game? Because I
No.
literally just started playing it like Nick's birthday week. So like not last week, but week before I started
Yeah.
playing it. And it's basically like logic puzzle mixed with Guess Who.
Okay.
So it's super fun.
Love
Turns
that.
out once you get to level 440, there's nowhere else to go. Like you could just play generic levels, but they kind of repeat. But like all the storybooks that you had to unlock are unlocked for now. All of like big
That
puzzles to unlock are locked for like you
that
can so
is
I can just play the
disappointing.
daily puzzle on it. I did not know. And I did get to 440 in 2 weeks. It just
See,
off the
I don't know
walls.
if like that or don't like that. Because on the one hand,
I hate it.
on the one hand, I would be so proud of myself that I finished the game.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other
Yeah,
hand, I'd be like, but then what?
that's where I'm at right now.
Well,
So
that's how I feel like. So
yeah.
Dan and I have a PlayStation 5 now because we were using Doug's and we got one. And we don't have a ton of games, obviously, because we
Mm-hmm.
don't like just spend money on stuff or spend a lot of time playing games. We mostly got it so that we had a DVD player, but like didn't buy a DVD player because why would you buy why
2025.
would yeah, it's 2025. If I
Mm-hmm.
need it to play DVDs, why would I not just buy a
Right.
PlayStation? Um, but one of the few games that we actually have is Hogwarts Legacy. And he was like, "Do you want to like play it again?" I go, "But we already 100% of the whole game. Like we 100% of the whole game, including like all of the PlayStation trophies. Like there's
Yeah.
nothing
Don't
left to
tell
do."
me what happens because I
No.
just recently repicked it back up.
Yeah, but
Me and
like
Jill.
but I was like, but yeah, actually Jill Snapchatted me the other day that she was playing the game, like of
Yeah.
the
So
game, and
the
I was
day she Snapchatted that was the
yeah.
same day that I had restarted playing it on my Switch. I haven't touched it in a year. Me and Jill are just on the same wavelength. I don't know what it is.
But I part of me is like, yeah, let's play it again. But then part of me is like, but it consumed my life so hard, and I've already done it.
You should get like PS Now. Isn't don't they have PS Now on PlayStation? It's like just like a relatively cheap subscription each month that has all these like cozy games and stuff, and then you just go play a game here and there.
Yeah, maybe.
I have that for Game Pass, which I haven't even played in my Xbox since I moved here because everything's a disaster.
Yeah,
Um, and all I want to do is play games, and all I have to do is not
work.
that.
Yeah.
Um, so, but yeah, so I pulled out my trusty Switch in the hopes that I could play at least a few minutes of the game. So I restarted. I did not restart. I picked up where I left off Hogwarts Legacy, and I am not even halfway, I don't think. So I got time.
Maybe I'll replay it. Because when Dan and I played it, he did 3 of the house stories, and I just did the 4th story. So I've never
Mm.
done like I haven't actually played through the whole game. I just played through the whole game once as like one
Right.
character. So I don't know. We'll see. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because our lives are clearly stellar, no problem. Oh, I did want to say one more thing. I'm sorry before we started. So I always like to go to Total Wine and just get like random beers that look intriguing.
Yeah.
And so this one I got is actually a New Orleans brewery. It's called Second Line Brewing, which is they're in their 11th year. I was gonna say 10, but we are not in 2024 anymore.
No.
Um, and I got this, and it's in New Orleans called Witch Please. And
Love
it's
that.
a Imperial Ever Ale with cinnamon, nutmeg, and allspice. So it's kind of like a little bit of like a cozy fall drink. I did get it in the fall. I'm just now drinking it.
Of course.
Ooh, and I just spilled it on myself. It's fine. But it's an independent brewer and it's really quite good and has a lot of flavor. So if you like an amber ale, and cinnamon-esque flavors, it's kind of like you're drinking a chai, but beer.
I thought about pouring myself a glass of wine because I can, but then I thought about how much I didn't want to get up today, and tomorrow is Valentine's Day and the last day of school before break, and I'm going away after school tomorrow, so if I have alcohol today, that will be four of the three strikes you're out, and I will not go to work tomorrow.
Yeah,
So I'm
I
drinking
am
the
drinking
Dr. Pepper.
nice. I'm drinking beer instead of wine because wine I will keep drinking and beer I will drink just the wine because I do have to work and study when we get off.
Yeah.
And maybe make pork chops unless I do Rachel's dinner. We'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah, so because we're doing well, obviously, clearly.
Obviously.
Please bring some enlightenment into my life.
All right. Maybe we're not supposed to be happy.
Great, excellent,
That's it.
strong start.
No.
That's it. That's the end.
Maybe gratitude has nothing to do with joy. Maybe being grateful means recognizing what you have for what it is, appreciating small victories, admiring the struggle it takes simply to be human. Maybe we're thankful for the familiar things we know, and maybe we're thankful for the things we'll never know. At the end of the day, the fact that we have the courage to still be standing is reason enough to celebrate.
Great. I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna wait until something good starts happening again. As opposed to just being grateful for what I have because everything sucks. It's gotta get better. So, I'm leading this one. I was like
You
waiting for you
sure
guys to
are.
make
No,
sure.
I don't have shit to say.
Hi, that's fine. You don't have to. Um, because this week we're talking about Hannibal season 3, episode 8, The Great Red Dragon. It aired July 25th of 2015 and was rated 8.5 out of 10, which is lower than the last few, which is upsetting to me.
To be fair, I found this episode kind of boring and annoying, and I realized it was because Will wasn't really in it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's fair. I have feelings that I'll share.
Okay.
Um, so if you listen to the first degree this week, you're gonna know everything I'm about to tell you about the number ones of the week because that is a podcast I listened to that they started doing like number one song and number one movie. And I was like, this is a
Oh,
great idea. I really like how they do this. And that's whenever I pitched it to you. Um, so Jack and Alexis, if you ever end up on here, I do apologize for stealing your idea. I am giving you credit. But they've already said all this because this week's episode was set at the same time. So
okay.
the number one song of the week is Cheerleader by OMI. I know.
Love
What
that
a bop.
song.
What a bop. Number one movie is still Ant-Man, which is my next watch for Marvel. So when I have more than 30 minutes, I'm gonna watch it. And the number one book is still English Spy by Daniel Silva. So not a lot has actually changed, other than the number one song, but here we are. On this day, some things have happened. It was a random day.
Okay.
Bob Kaufman died. Um, he is related to, I think, sports in some way or movies. I do not recall. I had it in my brain when I wrote this note down and then totally forgot. Chrysler recalled 14 million Cherokees after they had been hacked, which,
Good.
like, 10 years later, airplanes are getting hacked. You'd think we figure something out. Like, just do what it is. Like, I don't know. I don't know. We got to get better with computers. It's been long enough. Um, and my favorite thing that has happened this day that I meant to look up the outcome to. Um, let's see. Uh, yeah. So Gawker, if you're familiar, um, came out and said that they were going to make a name change so that it would be, and I quote, 20% nicer. That is what their CEO instructed. However, we have not had a name change. It is still Gawker. That's what I wanted to double
It's
check. I was
still
like,
Gawker.
I was like, I think it is, but I didn't actually double check it till now. It's still Gawker. I guess we didn't get nicer. We just
No.
are still here. But that was just a funny thing to come out of
For some,
CEO.
the thing that lets you filter posts on Facebook, to show you only a specific time is not working. So I can't go back to 2015, which
The
is,
internet's broken. I just told you we got to get better. It's been too long. We should have
yeah.
better internet now.
Well,
Um, so fun news. We're on the second half of the third season and we have a new director. Um,
good.
it is Neil Marshall, who is known for Dog Soldiers, Doomsday, Centurion, and The Descent, which is a horror movie that I don't know that I'm ever going to make it through. It sounds scary and weird. So I don't know if I'm going to make it, but
Okay.
we'll say I said that about Insidious and then watched every one of them in a day. So who knows what I'll do next? Um, he also directed 2 episodes of Timeless, the TV show that no one's heard of but me.
Hey.
Um, that's the show that I don't know if I talked about it on here recently. I was telling Nick about it recently, but they went back in time to like fix things or stop people from changing things so that the present didn't
Yeah.
change. Um, Great show. What's her name? Something Carter, isn't it?
Who knows?
Timeless TV show. She's incredible. Uh, nope, Abigail Spencer. I always mix her up with someone else, but Abigail Spencer, um, isn't it? And she's so good. But so he directed 2 episodes of that. He was meant to direct the movie Drive from 2011, which here's the thing. Maybe he should have. Because I don't know if you've seen that movie,
No.
but it's the one with Ryan Gosling.
Yeah, no, I know.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think I've deliberately not watched it.
For the best. I watched it. Literally all he does is drive. I couldn't even tell you what the movie was supposed to be about because I don't know that they had
A
words for
plot?
most of the movie or a plot. Like I think he was supposed to be like running away from someone or delivering something so someone else didn't die. Like it was that kind of premise.
Cool.
Horrible, horrible movie. One
Great.
of my least favorites. So maybe this guy should have directed it because it couldn't have gotten worse. His debut into TV, like so he had directed a couple like movies and stuff here and there in his earlier days, but his debut into TV was directing 2 episodes for Game of Thrones. So he just like jumped in the deep end.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, what a wild start. And then my favorite fact about this man, he is a quote unquote Splat Pack member, similar to like Rat Pack.
oh,
However, it is horror movie guys that have been recognized. So it's like an unofficial club, which I mean, so is the Brat Pack. So who's to say?
yeah.
And so other members, Alexandra Aha or Asia, um, Daniel Lynn Boseman, Greg McLean, Lee Wham. I cannot read my own handwriting. And then the 3 that I actually know, Eli Roth,
Mhm.
James Wan, and Rob Zombie. So like this guy is known. I just didn't know him because he
Yeah.
like is in this group of people I do know because James Wan does everything. For those of you that don't know, he did Insidious and did a lot of different stuff. And then Eli Roth has done also everything, and Rob Zombie has also done everything. So they're kind of, I think they're pretty common horror
Hmm.
film names.
Yeah.
Um, our writers are not new. Steve Lightfoot, Nick and Tosca. Nick and Tosca's only done one other episode. I have forgotten what it was because I wrote these notes 3 days ago. But he's the guy that from New Orleans that I talked about a lot.
Oh, okay.
And then our editor is Ben Wilkinson. Now our guest star or new star to the show is Richard Armitage, who plays Francis Dollarhide.
Mm-hmm.
He is known for The Hobbit, all of them.
Yep.
Into the Storm, the Doctor Who podcast series, the Gallifrey podcast series, which are things I did not know existed. I knew they had audio stories, but I didn't know there were actual like podcast series for them. And
Yeah.
Fool Me Once, which is a Harlan Coben show, and it turns out he's in most of the Harlan Coben shows on Netflix. Fool Me Once is one I have seen that was really good.
Okay.
So he's a little all over. Some fun facts about him. At 17, he joined a circus in Budapest to get his equity card. That was his choice of getting in.
Great.
He's named after King Richard III because he was born on the anniversary of the day he died.
Okay.
He suffers from equophobia, which is mostly the fear of drowning part of it, but there's other fears with water in that too. Aquaphobia. I don't know why it's aquaphobia. However, he has done a lot of films where he's been like waterboarded or had to like swim a lot, like long distances, and he's just kind of like pushed through. And he's like, yeah, it's okay, I can do it. So I guess kudos. He won the 2016 Saturn Award for his role in Hannibal. So feeling pretty good about the second half of the season.
Okay. That's more confident than I'm feeling.
Yep. He was a fan of the show Damages, which is the show that I discovered last year with
Glenn Close.
Glenn Close that I always think is Meryl Streep, and it's Glenn Close every time.
Yeah.
Then two roles that he was considered for that are different but also weird for him. He was considered to play Batman in the Batman versus Superman Dawn of Justice film. And last but certainly not least, he was a finalist to play the new Pennywise, which of course went to
Love him,
our guy.
Skarsgård.
Absolutely. So he was also considered for that role. However, our buddy Bill got it. So this is a little intro into like it's kind of like we have a new show again. Like,
Yeah.
we have a new director, we have a new like recurring role. So let's see how that goes. So we start 3 years later. Like I mentioned last week, we are jumping ahead because it's new time. We see a man with a map that reads the Great Red Dragon. He's been going through this information. He sees the Great Red Dragon, which, as we know, we watched Manhunter and what was the other one called?
Red Dragon.
Yeah. Shocker. Manhunter and Red Dragon. So we kind of know where this one starts out and goes through. And he's working out in the attic, just like, or in the upper level. I don't know if it's like truly an attic, but that's what it looks like in both the movie and the show.
Yeah.
Very similar setup. And he's doing lots of yoga to get into this shape, which is good. And then he's getting tattooed, which we know from the films, he does in one film and doesn't in the other because all the weird stuff. And it what looks like a mix between a dentist, a tattoo shop, a pawn shop, and a gambling den. I couldn't like pinpoint what this place was supposed to be, but these are the vibes I got.
I really didn't love the beginning of this episode. I don't know why, but too long without talking kind of makes me uncomfortable in certain shows.
Yeah, and it tried really hard to set up the scene for Manhunter was pretty silent. Red Dragon was kind of silent. Like it tried to bring us into that same vibe, I think, and it is a different show. And like even if it's the same story, it's a different show.
I mean, and there has been like long periods of silence within the show that weren't weird, but I don't know, this one was.
I think it was weird because it jumped 3 seasons. We're not in the same like mind frame. We're not in the same style. We're not in the same characters. We're not like.
But we didn't. There was no time gap like in viewing.
Right.
So
that's what I'm saying. It's like
I would be so weirded out if it was like if I was watching this for real, like when it aired and it was like everything just like suddenly changed.
Well, yeah, because it felt like an entirely new show in this first like intro scene. And
Yeah.
so it was just kind of a weird way to get into it. Um, and then we see the tattooed scene, which is the, the one that we know so well. And then we go to the credits. And when we come back to the credits, we're at a church. And there's a small child singing hymns, and Hannibal is in attendance. And so we're like, what's going on? And we have flashbacks to the night he was arrested and booked. So we see the arrest that we left off on, but then we start seeing like him get booked as well. So we're kind of filling in some
Yeah.
pieces of where we left off. But he looks so at peace. Like this man has never looked so peaceful, I don't think, in his life. But also
It was weird because then also like he wasn't there. I don't know. I didn't like this episode.
I know it's okay. It was a weird way to set it up. I think there's some good things in there, some bad things about this
Yes,
episode. We'll get
I mean,
into.
yeah, there were, but
Yeah. And so we start seeing like newspaper headlines and stuff, and we learned that Chilton came out and gave a comment about Hannibal, which like obviously.
of
Um,
course.
and we see the scene of him locked and chained behind the glass. And so we see that a lot of this is like this escapism is in his head and in his like mind palace-y setup, but he's still just behind the glass locked up and chained.
Yeah.
And we have Bloom and Hannibal. And again, we kind of hop back over to where we're like in like an office space and she's brought the food and the wine that she used to track him down in Italy. It really feels like it is a 3-year jump with only regular viewing time. It feels like they did this was like a winter break to a what am I trying to say? Like winter break to start back in the spring or whatever.
Oh yeah, like a
And so
mid-season
like
premiere.
yeah, like a mid-season premiere.
Only it
That's the word I
wasn't.
was looking for. Only
Yeah.
it wasn't, which is why it's so weird the way they've set up. Because like, remember how we tracked you this way? It's like we knew that 2 weeks ago. Like we
Yeah.
may not remember everything, but we know that.
Right. That's what I felt like. I didn't like it because it felt weird. Because if it had been a mid-season premiere and there was an actual like gap of time,
Yeah,
but I don't know. It was weird that it would only was a week later.
yeah. It was weird. And so she tells him, she says, "Congrats, Hannibal, you're officially insane."
Hmm.
Um, and we learn that those aren't words I've used. We learn that he's been deemed insane kind of by the committees, but they said they can't actually diagnose him
Yeah.
because of whatever's going on in his brain, which is like fine. Um, oh, no real designation. That's what that says. He has no real designation, even though she says that. And then he starts talking about, I thought you used to be a beer drinker. Like, when did you switch over to wine? And she's like, I stopped drinking beer when I found out who was being put into mine or being put in there. Do you remember this? Who was being put into her beer?
No. It was just that he brewed his own beer, so he was probably using like blood in the brewing,
Right.
which you had gassed. She said after I found out what was being put into it, and he said more
She said,
like no.
oh, I thought she said
She
who.
said what, and he said more like who. And
Hmm.
so it wasn't. It was more of a comment of the fact that it was blood, not any other liquid. It
Yeah.
wasn't
I was
really.
trying to figure out, like, it
No,
made it sound like we should have known who, and I was like, I don't think
I don't know.
so.
I don't think so either.
Okay. All right, good. At least we haven't forgotten anything. Um, so then we see that he's drawing her, and they start discussing that she hasn't died yet. And she's like, yeah, that's still like on your agenda. And he's like, I always keep my promises. And I was like, this is just very casual and feels very much like it's going to happen. So that's good. You're so calm about it, though. And then we get an image of the glass shattering, and we go to
Mhm.
Francis. Um, and this one, I thought this was a good visual. It felt more like we were trying to get back into our like regular visuals instead of the like
Mhm.
off the wall artsy ones that we've had the rest of the season.
Correct.
Um, and he's practicing his dragon sounds, which is not at all disconcerting. And then we see him outside at night covered in blood with no real explanation.
And then you
So
lost me
that's,
again.
yeah. And so then we get visuals of creating a dessert. And it's Sanguiano Dolce, which is like a blood chocolate dessert.
Mhm.
Um, and it's Hannibal and Chilton. And he says this time it's made with cow's blood from a local pasture. And uh Chilton's like, what was it last time? And I'm like, why are you asking? One, you know it's human blood. Two, you don't want to know. Like, that's not a question you want an answer to. But he does confirm that it's just a different type of cow. I was like, yeah, it's a human.
No, he said
Um,
he said usually it's made with pig blood, and he said it
yeah,
was a pig only in name, meaning like it was a terrible
right,
person.
right. Um, and so then we learned that he wrote a book about Hannibal. Oh, wait, was oh yeah. So he's talking about naming his books. We learned that he's written a book about Hannibal. And his new book is going to be about the Tooth Fairy, which is Francis. And
Hmm.
he's clearly trying to just get a quote from Hannibal for this book. He is just
Yeah.
riling him up and just like pushing him to the edge. Um, and we learned that the Tooth Fairy is different from the Chesapeake Ripper or Hannibal because he goes in unsuspectingly to these homes and he kills people and he kills their entire family. And it's like
Yep.
off the wall with no real meaning on either side. Um, and then we hop over to Bloom's office and Chilton's just like chilling in her chair with no cares in the world. And she's not happy about it, obviously. She
Yeah.
clearly doesn't have good blood with Chilton. And he's saying a prayer and he says, thank you on behalf of the monster. And she's like, why are we thinking a monster? Um, and Bloom's also like, she's like, we've lied. Like, I don't know exactly what she's talking about. I know that he did a lot to make his book more, you know, um, readable or whatever, like more dramatic. But otherwise, I don't know what else they lied about. But I think
Right.
my understanding was that they lied enough to get him into the institution as opposed to having him killed,
Right.
um, which makes sense. Um, but she does say he wrote a book of lies. And then we learn that Hannibal is now writing a new piece that's a rebuttal to Chilton. And Chilton is so much less concerned than he should be. It's
Yeah.
like he's never met this man in his life because he's just like,
Alana's like, your life will be
whatever.
ruined.
Yeah. And he's like, nah. And she's like, 100%, no question. Um, and Chilton just tells her to be careful in this whole scenario. And
Hmm.
then we hop back over to Francis. And we have the projector movie scene, not with Freddie, but just like the scene itself.
Yeah.
And he's he's just like off the wall. Like he just looks deranged. And I don't feel like we see enough of him this episode to know how he plays this character.
Yeah.
So if he's winning awards, I'm sure that comes down the line.
Right.
Um, but he just
I think that was
is
what my real
deranged.
problem was. I felt like a lot of this episode was focused on him, but also none of this episode was focused on him.
Because it was more like a setup, like the beginning of a new show, than it
Yeah.
was to be like, and a lot of the stuff in the show that we've already watched is like we're showing you this because we know you've seen it, we know what you're talking about, so we're just throwing it in there and moving on.
Hmm.
This, it was like we're building an entire story like you've never seen Manhunter or Red Dragon.
Right.
And I think that's why it felt so disjointed because it wasn't just you're watching Hannibal because you know about Hannibal. It was like
Yeah.
you've never seen any of the movies before. We're going to introduce you to this man that you don't know.
Right.
And so that was a little bit of a weird setup. Um, so now we're back to the institution, and Hannibal is reading articles about the Tooth Fairy and writing a letter. And then we hop over to Tooth Fairy, who's keeping all of these articles along with this entire book of articles that he has about Hannibal. So it's clear that he's like following in his footsteps, which is
Hmm.
disconcerting.
Yes.
Um, and then we finally get to Will. We learn that he's got dogs again, which is nice for him.
Hmm.
Very pleased, very pleased. And unfortunately for him, Jack pulls up. and just is like, here's the situation. I need you back. Um, and they're having coffee outside, and he tells him, he's like, why are we outside? We could go inside. He's like, oh, you don't want me inside. And Will's like, yup,
Sure.
let's
Yeah.
keep going. Let's wrap this up. He's trying so hard to be normal. And Jack just starts telling about this case, and he's like, have you heard about it? He was like, yeah, I've heard about it, but I'm not like
I'm not
super
doing this
into
anymore.
it.
I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah. He's like, my family will be home, so I don't want to see pictures. Like, I'm familiar, but this is just what it is. And then we move on to having dinner with Jack. And I was like, well, that escalated.
Right.
So Molly is telling him about the dogs and talking about taking in the strays. And she's like, they're dropped off all the time. And then we end up keeping them. And so that's how they got all the dogs. And then um, the kid, I've forgotten his name. The kid like goes off to do something and Will goes with him. And so Molly and Jack are chatting. And he starts showing her pictures of the victims. So he's not only trying to get Will, he's trying to get her to send Will, which
Right.
apparently is the right move, even though it feels
Yeah.
like not the right
It
one.
feels very icky, but it worked.
Yeah, because then we go to Molly and Will, and she's convincing him to go find the tooth fairy. And he tells her, he's like, if I go, I'll be different when I get back. And she's like, I'll be the same though. And I
Yeah.
was like, that's not a good match.
That's
When
not,
someone's different and
yeah.
someone's the same, doesn't go well. Doesn't go
Oh,
well
no, it
usually.
sure doesn't.
But okay, if that's the way you're gonna do it, that's fine, I guess. And so then Will wakes up in the middle of the night and he has a letter that he opens from, of course, Hannibal.
Yep.
And he has an article about the tooth fairy, and Hannibal tells him not to get involved. He's like, for your sake and mine as a friend, don't get involved.
Right.
And I was like, how is Hannibal the only one that seems to care about Will's mental health still? Like, wild.
Yeah.
So obviously, Will goes to check out the property in Buffalo, um, because immediately he's going to do what Hannibal doesn't say and what's worse for his mental health.
Which also, let me just tell you, I'm so sick of people putting Buffalo in TV shows and then not being accurate at
And
all.
not being Buffalo. Yeah,
Um, First of all, the newspaper that he had, not real.
sure. Well, they might not have had the rights to the real one.
The real one's garbage, so it's fine. We might as well not have a newspaper anyway. But that's all. I hate our newspaper. Um, but
Yeah, that's okay. I don't even know what our newspaper is. Canadian Times. Are we still, is that still ours? I don't know. I obviously don't get the newspaper.
no, I choose to not get the newspaper because I used to get the newspaper and they renewed me without telling me and then never sent me a bill until they sent me a notice that I had not paid my bill and sent me to collections. And I was like, oh,
Amazing. Amazing.
cool, cool, cool,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Um, I love that for you. So he's at this house and he opens up the fridge to find a Baby Bel has obviously been eaten by a serial killer because who just opens a Baby Bel, bites it off, and puts it back in the fridge? Tell me your husband does it. Tell me, and I will be solidified in the
No,
fact
no,
that he's a serial killer.
no. Thank
And
God.
this was just a regular family member.
No, I mean he just like eats cheese, like not cheese, celery, like all the time. Like just
Like a psychopath.
yeah. Like when he wants a snack, he'll just eat like an entire stalk of celery. Um,
Mm-mm,
so
mm-mm.
like I'm not saying he's normal, but
Right.
he doesn't defile Baby Bell cheese.
Right, right. Yeah, Nick asked me the other day when we were ordering wings for the game. He was like, what else do you want? We can get some things that are sauce and some things that are veggies. He's like, don't worry, I already got an order of celery. And I was like, I don't want that. Please give me another sauce.
Dan
Please.
orders extra celery. When we order wings, he wants extra celery.
Why? Crazy person. No one wants that. No one wants that.
No, I certainly have never wanted extra vegetables of any kind ever.
I mean, I love broccoli. And I do love other vegetables.
No, I
However,
enjoy vegetables, but I've never been like, you know what? I'm gonna get a meal and I'm gonna get double the vegetables.
I have done that. However, I've not done that with celery or carrots, which are your two wing veggies. Those are not ones I need extra of ever. But broccoli, I probably.
Balsamic Brussels sprouts, I'll get extra of those.
Oh, yeah. Any type of Brussels sprouts, balsamic, fried, grilled, just hook me up. I'm in. I'm
Actually,
in.
when I was at the wedding in England, they had air fried kale. That
Oh,
was
I've made that
actually
before.
I'm not a kale person. I ate a fuck ton of that.
You just throw all the seasoning on it, you air fry it. That is a
Yeah.
tasty snack. I used to make that in Brooklyn all the time whenever I did the CSA box. I don't know if that's the words. I think it's CSA box. But it's basically the neighborhood veggie box that you like
Mm.
volunteer and you get a lot
Yeah.
cheaper or whatever.
Yeah.
Because it's a ton of kale. It's so many greens. And so I was like, I gotta figure out, and I like kale, but I was like, I gotta figure out something else because I can't just have 7 smoothies a day. And so I started air frying it and just putting whatever seasoning on it, and it was so good. Um, the Chipotle, the Chipotle lime from Trader Joe's is the best one. Um, Also, if you see me like looking to the side, like in terror for my life, it's not, I'm fine. Um, Now that we're getting into springtime, boats are starting to go down the river, and I just see like the tops of the boats sticking out over the levee, and it throws me off every time. Every time I think someone's coming to kill me.
It's okay. I'm
Um,
still scrolling my phone to find out where I was in 2015 because I can't jump to it, so I have to scroll to it.
we'll never know. We'll never know
No.
then.
We'll finish this
Um,
podcast before I get there.
Absolutely. When did I tell you it was? June, July,
It's July
End of
2015.
July.
Yeah, I'm still in
Um,
2020. Because you remember 2020 and 2021, there was nothing to do but post on social media. So all I did was
yeah,
what?
yeah. Um, so Baby Bel, defiling Baby Bel. And so then he finds the kids dead in their room and finds the dad dead in the hall. And then he goes to the bedroom covered in blood and red string. And then he opens the FBI files and we get our first rewind in a long time. And at this moment, it kind of felt like it was starting to go back to the original
Yes,
show.
this was the scene that I felt like I got the show again.
Yeah, I was like, okay, we pushed through, we put in our time for the first half of the season. We're getting a story we know, we're getting the will that we know before chaos ensued. And so it's like, there's only 6 episodes left,
Yeah.
or 5 episodes left. Surely, we can hang in there till then. We're gonna be pissed at the end if we do hang in there till the end and it is as good as the first season that it's canceled at the end. However, I would rather that
Yeah.
than devolving into whatever the first half of the season was.
Correct.
So we get our memory rewind, and he cuts the glass to open the door, which all of those glass cutters are terrifying. I only think of them in home invasions and jewelry, like thieves,
Yeah.
theft. Um, and so then he starts by cutting Miss Leeds' throat. She's the first victim. And I mean, by cutting Mr. Leeds' throat and then shooting Mrs. Leeds. And so once he thinks he's done with them, Mr. Leeds tries to protect the children when he goes in there, but he doesn't make it that far. He falls out in the hallway and is just done for. And then the Tooth Fairy shoots the two boys anyways. He pulls one out. It's very upsetting. It's a very upsetting scene.
Yeah.
Like worst home invasion you could think of. And he but then he moves the family and then puts them back where they died. Which
Is creepy. I mean, because we
yeah,
read, or by read, I mean watched the
mhm,
movies, which in my mind means we read the book, even though
sure.
that's not how that worked. Because we know the Red Dragon story already, we know why. But like
Mhm.
for the first time, like just being like, oh, that's how they did that. Fucking weird.
Wild, yeah. Um, and then we learn that there's talcum powder on the bodies. And of course he says, "This is my design." So we literally, I feel like, which is what I wanted. I feel like we just erased the first half of the season.
Yeah.
And we're like, just kidding. None of that happened.
Right.
It was a means to an end. Nothing happened. Just come back like we never left. Um, and then we get the visual with the string behind him of that looks like a red dragon's wings. So like we've made it. We've made it. Um, And then we hop over to Jimmy Price because our drink team's back of Price and Zeller. Um,
That was
and
great.
he is back on the scene. He's like, "Do you have an assistant I could borrow or a partner I could borrow?" And then Zeller walks in. And he's like, "Never mind. Mine has arrived." And the detective on scene mentions getting rid of Freddie being on the scene. So we know we're about to get Freddie back too. Well, he says a redheaded journalist. And it's like, okay, it's Freddie.
Yeah.
So she's back and she's doing her thing again. And we do an autopsy, which occurs, and they find a partial print on Mrs. Lee's, and they are psyched. They are like, this is it. We're gonna find who it is.
Yeah.
And then in the midst of this, Will arrives with Jack and they start discussing the mirror. And so we know that he breaks all the mirrors in the house and puts them like on all of the openings, so the eyes, the mouth, etc., of the bodies. And he also left a big bite on one of the victims, and so you could tell that he's snaggletooth. Or maybe that was the Baby Bel bite. They did not actually specify where the bite was. He could have been the one to bite the Baby Bel.
I think they did say that they were testing the cheese.
Okay, they may have. I just missed that. And then we go back to him, and this is one of the first scenes where we see him like hearing noises in his head. And so like we know from the films how that kind of progresses.
Yeah.
But this is the first time we see it in this episode. And then we go to Will in his motel room because obviously he's out of town now that he's moved into his home with his wife Molly. And he's having a drink. And he's calling Molly, but she doesn't answer. So he lays down and he starts seeing all of the crime scene pictures in his head. And he realizes, as of course he would, there's a dog that's missing.
Yes.
And so he asks Jack about it. And Jack tells him not to worry about it. And I'm like, Jack, you brought this man into this case. You know his idiosyncrasies. You know that once he spotted something, there's a reason for
and
it.
also, like, yes, we know he loves dogs. Right.
Sure.
Do you really think that that's his concern? Like, why does Jack jump to the idea that Will wants the dog for himself? Like, yes, we know that Will loves dogs, but after everything that you've done and everything that you've been through, you really don't like.
Right. And Will would
really don't trust him.
In. Sure, Will would take the dog in. That's not why he's asking. Right. That's not what he cares about. He wants to know what was displaced to the family, and that's the thing he found displaced. So he says he can wait until it's too late, or he could just go see Hannibal now. He's like, we all know that this is the next part of the process. So I can wait, or I can go now. And so, of course, he goes now. And so he goes to see Hannibal, and we see Hannibal seeing himself in the church. God, I wrote this with the worst handwriting. And when he walks in at the church, and then you see Will walk in, and he says, "Hello, Dr. Lecter." He says, "Hello, Will." That is the end. So, what did you think?
Like I said, once Will was back on the crime scene, I was in again. The first half of the episode I really did not care for. I understood what they were trying to do. And I think part of it was that the story isn't a mystery to me.
Right.
And it was too much introduction, which is only funny because I literally said last week that I didn't want them to move through the story quickly.
Yeah.
But I didn't think that they were going to move through it that
immediately.
Slowly. Like
molasses.
It was a lot. I didn't really, and I don't feel like they introduced Francis well enough. Like, I think that's the problem. In the movies, you get so much more about him than you do about Will and Hannibal for a good chunk of the movie. And I understand why they couldn't do that on the show because that's not what the people are here to see. But they kind of tried to replicate that in a format that didn't work. Like that whole opening of like watching him silently do yoga and stare at the magazine only made sense to me because I know the story. If I was
Right.
watching that as a person who was entering the world of Hannibal via this show, I could not like continue watching it, especially after how fucking awful the first half of the season was. Like I'd be out.
Right. Yeah. I agree. I think that they had an issue with the transition and with figuring out how they were going to move forward because you have to think they have not only the book, but they have Manhunter and Red Dragon that they're like, what do we take from each thing and what worked and what didn't, and how do we make it a TV show? And so I think that overwhelmingly Manhunter had the better storyline, and I think they tried to go in that direction, which was a lot more silent, which is a lot more 80s, was a lot more, like it didn't have that same thriller and that same like cringe feeling that one you get from Red Dragon and that you get from the first two seasons we have, because the first two seasons are set in a world more like Silence of the Lambs, Red Dragon, the like more
Yeah.
modern Hannibal stuff. And so you have this like dichotomy they're trying to play with, and they're like, but we want the same vibes people got from Manhunter, but we want to put it in today's time. And it's like, that's not how it works. Like, you don't
Yeah,
have to be Red Dragon, but you can't be Manhunter. Like, those are not the
they're
same. And
no.
so
They
it
had
tried to
they
do,
had they had an opportunity, I think. Like, and I know that there was like a desire to stay true to Thomas Harris's work, and I
mhm,
do understand that, but they had the opportunity to take a story that has been told three times previously
mhm,
and really kind of shape it to the world. Like you think about the how much they changed Alana, how much they changed
yep,
Freddy, how much they changed Hannibal himself, and they did all of this and they did it well. And so they had this opportunity to take a three-peat story and use the fourth one in a way that fit this world, and they tried too hard to stick true to the source material when nothing
yeah,
else they've done has. And so it
no,
just felt like a really odd choice.
right,
And so then by the time we get to Will and Will actually trying to solve the cases, they did do it much more similar to the way our Will has versus other
right,
portrayals of Will. And even the scenes with Hannibal, like the scenes with Alana and Hannibal, the scene with Chilton and Hannibal, the scene with Will and Hannibal, those all fit. But unfortunately, that was 40% of the episode.
right. And because you look at how they did Freddie, and like I feel like she's like the prime example of how did we not follow the storyline but didn't get out of place? Because they had the chair on fire scene, but Freddie did die. In the movie, she dies.
Yeah.
Well, he dies. Like they have all of these scenes that are iconic. When you have the mask, like it's on Mason, which is not how it is in it's in Hannibal Rising the first time, which is not Mason. And so you have all of these pieces that you're like fitting into a puzzle. It's like, here's your Easter egg. Here's how we keep it true to Thomas Harris. However, we are a different show. And like you said, this is the third round of doing this. There's no
Fourth. I mean,
need.
honestly, fourth because there's two movies and the book.
Right. So this is well, it's the third time to do it in a visual
Yeah.
aspect. And so like you don't have to have the same story. You can have a storyline, you can have a story progression, you can have this and that, but like you don't have to completely repeat it. And you can't because this Hannibal and this Will have not been portrayed the same way as our original ones. So
No.
you can't do them the same. Francis Dollarhide is a new character to the series, so sure, you could make him the same as something else, but why?
But also,
Why would you want to do that?
they're going to have to change a
Hmm.
lot of the Dollarhide story
Yeah,
anyway, because the story and the way it was written and the way it was done in the previous movies exist in a world that does not have the technology that has already been established in our
right.
story. No
Hmm.
one sends home videos to a lab to get made in a dark room.
Yeah,
That can't be how he finds his victims. And if they choose to do make that how he finds his victims, I can't buy it in the world that we have.
yeah, because we already have social media. We have like if they want to, the way that they should do it, let me tell them, even though it's already done, they should do it in the same way they've been following up with stories that are announcing everything else. When Freddie came out about Chilton, when Freddie came out about this, when Chilton wrote his book and made a statement about Hannibal, put it in the news online. make an article online. This is where you're finding it from. He's already saving paper articles of what Hannibal's done, and
Right.
he's saving articles about what he's done. So use the same instance, even if he's pulling it from the newspapers, fine. People still use newspapers. That's not out of the necessary. But like you do have to have a reason. And so they're gonna have to name that. I think they got nervous starting this story because one, it's a big story. We've
Yeah.
had 2 movies on it. It's a big story from Thomas Harris books that they're trying to stay true to. So now it's like, how do you do that? I imagine this will be the rest of the series. Think we're getting the Dollarhead story until the end
I think so too.
because they're starting so slow. And I think that's why they started slow, is because they're like, we don't want to run out of material. This was an hour and a half movie, 2 hours.
No, both movies were over 2 hours.
I know
They
they
were
were like
too long.
but they were over 2 hours. But then they're trying to make it into, almost 6 hours essentially, which
Yeah.
is obviously a third. Like it's a third of what they can do. And so it's like, how do we enter this in but keep the story going? And so they tried to.
And there's so much that more that they can do to build the suspense. They can show more victims. They can show Dollarhide getting deeper into it. They can build the suspense in a way that works better in the TV format. They can build on the Will having to go back into that part of himself and talk to Hannibal. But I just think they tried to make sure that all of the threads were in one episode. But then they were like, but if we put all the threads in one episode, we can't tell any of the story in this episode. And so there was none of the story.
And the thing is there's plenty of story left from our seasons that they can intertwine it with this story, that they don't have to make it this drawn out, because we're gonna have to bring Gillian Anderson back.
Right. Alana
we
is
have to
now
talk
here.
about Margot.
Right. I was gonna say Alana is now here and working and talking to Chilton and Jack again as if nothing happened. And what did Margot do after she sperm spanked her brother?
And like, what are we gonna do with Hannibal? Like, is he gonna get out at the end? Like, maybe. And like, is he gonna kill Alana before it's over? Because that's how it seems. But those are all big storylines that you can look into, like reintegrating Will into the FBI after he's left for so long. Like, because they're not gonna do Manhunter style where he's like a renegade that jumps in, does it all, and then goes back home. Like, he's part of the FBI. He's already reintegrated. He's already joining with Price and Zeller. Like, and so there's so many other storylines that like aren't filler that can fill these episodes.
And,
so there's no
also
need
in the Dollarhide story, they go after Molly and the kid.
Right.
However, the way that they introduced Molly and the kid in this episode, I don't care. Like, and obviously, like I care because I don't want anybody to die. But like, if they show him going after them to get to Will, I don't believe that Will cares about them.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. Because even he's like, because at first I thought they were going to make this kid his kid, even though I was like, that's not how time works.
No.
But I was like, maybe they're going to make it his kid. And then whenever he first said it, I was like, maybe he's just younger in this episode. But then they didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And then they very specifically said his father, and like distanced the kid from him and the language used, even though it's clear he cares, but like it felt
it's clear he cares and he is the kid's stepdad in a way, but like Will put the same level of wall up with Molly and the kid that he has with everyone. And like I was more worried about Beverly and how that would affect Will than I am about his supposed partner, wife, somebody. Like,
and they're married, but they don't tell you that. But they're married in this episode.
Were they? Because I didn't know that.
They are. They just don't tell you. But the thing is, like, by the end of this episode, the only thought I had was Hannibal's going to get out and kill Balloon. That was it. That was such a minor part of this episode.
Which I didn't even have that thought.
I should have cared about anything else more. That was my least thing I should have cared about. And it was the only thing that I even kind of cared about. Like, and so it's a really drawn out, and I think this is they shot themselves in the foot in the first 2 seasons. We discussed this early on that we thought this might happen. They started off strong. They hung on strong. Now we're in the second half of the 3rd season and they are coming in really slow. And it's like, you can't do that. You don't get to back off.
Right.
When you back off, you lose people. That's why we get canceled.
Yes.
And this whole first half of the season was a different show. But this show is coming back to what we had in the first 2 seasons, and they're still back down. It's like, you can't do that.
The only way The only way this works as a singular arc for the rest of the season is if they go back to Killer of the Week in between.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
only way.
Yep. And I don't know that they have it in them. I feel
No.
like they've set up too much else for this to be the
And
way.
I don't know that they've portrayed Will in a way that it's logical
Mm-mm.
to have that in them.
No. And if they're trying to follow Manhunter so closely in Red Dragon, that's not how it goes. He
Correct.
only focuses on Tooth Fairy and meetings with Hannibal. However, we see a lot less Hannibal in the movies. So we will theoretically see a lot more Hannibal in this,
But for
obviously.
what?
Right. But why? Are you following the scene? Like, if it's not Killer of the Week, like, what are you doing? Like, why are you seeing him so much? That's not necessary. You've got that letter probably was all he needed from him. And that one intro meeting or whatever he had about Tooth Fairy. Everything else should follow through.
Yeah.
So I'm cautiously optimistic, which I have been, I feel like, for like on the edge of my seat
Yeah.
for 6 weeks.
I know, and I'm still not. I will say I'm feeling better than I was last week, but I still am unfortunately seeing more flaws than positives.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm hopeful that we're gonna come out of it. But I like I said, we have this was episode 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. We have 5 episodes left. But if we have nothing else, at least we know in 5 weeks we'll be doing a wrap up and watching Silence of the Lambs. So
True.
stay
True, true,
tuned for
true.
that. I believe I have a little bit of trivia, but I forgot to
Okay.
write it down. This was the first episode not to be named after a form of cuisine,
Yes.
obviously. Um, so episodes 8 through 12 are actually all going to be named after Red Dragon watercolors. Williams Blake's Red Dragon watercolors. So if you recall, that's where all this started, was the Red Dragon by William Blake. So they're all going to have to actually be named after his watercolors. Um, Richard Armitage studied a Japanese dance performance art called Buto in order to portray the animalistic movements of Francis Dollarhide. Um, da, 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 da. Okay, that's not a spoiler. We know that now. So many times I'm on IMDb and it's like spoiler, and I'm like, no, it's a spoiler for this episode. Like
Yes.
it
No,
was
no, no,
like
no,
we
no.
don't.
They do anything that is tells you too much about the plot of the particular
Mm,
episode is labeled as a spoiler.
I want it to be like future spoilers.
Yeah, I don't know.
Um, so Alana comments, so there's incorrectly regarded as a goof. A lot of people said Alana comments that even without Hannibal's confession, there was ample evidence to convict him of several murders. It's been stressed repeatedly through the series that he does not leave forensic evidence. She's likely referring to the events in season 2 finale and any evidence discovered in his home afterwards, because we've made it abundantly clear that there was no evidence.
Yeah, no, I think it
Um,
I don't think that's a goof. I think that's the murder disappearance and then everything that they found
yeah,
in the house afterwards,
right,
after he fled.
right. And then there was a quote from Dr. Chilton. The quote from Dr. Chilton in the Tattle Crime article had a typo. It
Ugh,
said he man not even be human instead of he may not even be human. Um, and then cannibalism was also spelled wrong in one of the headlines.
love it.
Um, love to see it. Love to see it. Um, so I think that's our discussion on this episode. Hopefully we have more coming out of next week. Hopefully there's a better move. But in the meantime, who do you want to punch in the face?
Honestly, probably Chilton. I know he's probably like the
Hmm,
least of the problems, but
I don't
like
know.
he's so fucking
He's such
obnoxious.
a problem, like as an existing human being, though.
Yeah.
That's totally fair. I'm gonna go with Jack because I
Okay.
wish he'd just leave Will alone. I understand why he can't, but just leave the man alone. He's been through a lot. Um, so who's your MVP?
I'm gonna go with Alana because she seems to be the only one who's like acknowledging that Hannibal's not that they're not out of the woods because Hannibal's locked up. Like she's the only one who's
No.
acknowledging that he can be a problem from inside too.
Yeah. What's wrong with everyone? How do we not know this? Like, he has so clearly gotten out of everything that he shouldn't have. How is she the only one that's concerned? But yes, great pick.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with Jimmy Price
Great.
because he made me laugh.
Perfect.
And I'm happy to see him again. I'm happy to see our team again and not just the Italian team that all dies and
that's true. They all sucked.
They did all suck, guy.
I would like you to know that I have only made it to February of 2019 in my rolling.
So check back next week to know what Mary Kate did this week. 10 years ago.
Because Facebook hated me today, and so there was no way to know. To be fair, it was probably nothing.
I'm trying to remember if I think this is the week we went on our cruise. Because this is the summer we did everything after graduation before I started law school. And so I think this may have been the week that we went on our cruise before I started law school.
This was between the opera that I stage managed that ended in the end of June and going to New York City in August with Wayne to see Tokyo Hotel. But so it was like summer and I wasn't back in school yet. So I probably just was a fucking idiot. Like I probably did nothing useful.
That's for the best sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah.
That's my plan soon. That's not at all my plan.
That's my plan for literally tomorrow night.
I am hardcore studying for the bar already. Like my course is about to end, so I'm trying to panic through all of my lectures before it ends and restarts mid-March. Because I cannot fail this bar and then have to retake it. I don't think I can handle it. It is a team too much. I have paid too many thousands of dollars.
Too many thousands.
I'm already not certain they're going to be happy with me because I have stuff I have to turn in from New Jersey for my bar there. So we'll see. Theoretically, they'll let me take the bar. We'll see how it goes. Here's hoping.
All right.
In the meantime, if you have thoughts about Hannibal or whatever, what did we talk about? Book talk. We talked about book talk today.
And Duolingo.
Oh, yes. If you're on the TikTok and you have fun stories, feel free to. We have a TikTok. You can send us TikToks.
Yes.
Please. If you are on the Duolingo, the Kendrick Lamar, Drake, book talk, any of the things that bring you joy, all we want right now is joy. You can email us, definitely.
I actually last night had a really great idea for a stitch I was going to do on the Death and Aliens TikTok, and now I don't remember what it was.
I had a really great idea on Monday night when I had a breakdown, and then I had a breakdown and forgot. So
I'm going to have to go through the things that I liked on my own, because I know I saved it on my own personal TikTok so that I would remember. But now I'm going to have to do that some point this weekend. Think about what the
darn, you have to watch all the TikToks you like. What a terrible thing to do.
What a terrible thing to do.
Anyways, if you want to email us, you can email us deathandaliens@gmail.com. Find us on all the social medias, including TikTok at Death and Aliens. You can find me at CCloud13.
And you can find me everywhere at EMKAY_superstar.
And we will see you for our next Red Dragon Watercolor next week and our one of the least favorite episodes of Stargate. I hope we're hyping up next week for you. It's going to be stellar.
At least our breakdowns will be
something.
Bye.